I asked the supervisor, how comfortable would you be telling your team honestly how you feel about your role as a leader? And he said, no way, I wouldn't do that because that would be weak. Then I asked the team, how would you like it if your boss was honest with you about how he feels in his role? And they all said, I would love it. I would respect him more.
Welcome to the Masks Off podcast, Leadership Strategies, No Disguises. I'm Razwana Waheed, and together with my co-host Olivier Larvor, we talk to the smartest people in the world of leadership, change and psychology to give leaders real strategies to bring human back to the workplace.
If you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media. In this episode, author, consultant, social-emotional intelligence and leadership expert Nate Regier joins us to talk about productive conflict and what does it mean if you're a company that's afraid of addressing or starting conflict.
So Nate, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your book, Conflict Without Casualty. So what's the book all about?
The book came out of a need that we saw in the world for healthy ways to use conflict as a resource instead of as a distraction. Goodness knows there is enough conflict to go around in the world. And more than ever, we're seeing that conflict create destruction, and that energy of conflict is being used in what we call drama. We didn't want to get rid of the energy of conflict. We simply wanted to find a way to use that energy productively. And very few people that we work with have well-developed skills to harness the positive power of conflict. They tend to run away from it or avoid it or be scared or things go bad, and they have a lot of negative associations with that.
That must be very difficult to sell, actually, because I know lots of corporations. When I talk to them, they say, please don't check up things. Don't disturb what it is. You know, we don't want to have like something bursting into the meeting. So is it easy for you just to come and to say, okay, look, guys, we'll do some conflict now, you know?
The idea of starting conflict on purpose, it scares people. And so we usually start the conversation with helping them reflect on what is the cost you are paying now for conflict that is not being dealt with. Are we avoiding things? Are we walking around subjects and not talking about them? Because if a company is afraid of starting conflict, then they know that there is a lot of suppressed energy that could explode. For us, it's about how do we start to let that energy out in safe ways, controlled ways, productive ways. It's not about exploding everything.
So talk to us about some situations of conflict that you've seen in the clients that you're working with and how they set about learning new skills in terms of how to handle that kind of conflict.
Two specific examples. One of the most common ones is a leader they see a gap between what they want and what their people are doing. Maybe an employee is not performing up to a standard, or maybe someone on their team is not meeting the goals. They don't know how to talk about that without the conversation appearing to be mean or appearing to be untrusting. Most times they've tried to talk about it, it just goes bad. That's the most common one, is how do I have a conversation with someone to close the gap between a performance problem? The second situation that's very, very common is meetings that don't result in any productive activity. People talk about things, but by the end of the meeting, we don't know who is supposed to do what, and there is no clear accountability for action. And so the next time we have a meeting, nobody really knows what happened, and we don't know how to talk about it.
Let's talk about this accountability, because I've read something about you about this compassionate accountability. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I'm very much into compassion now.
Yes.
But in the business, how do you bring that?
Yeah. And we put two things together that are not supposed to go together. Compassion and accountability. What? Here's what we discovered is that compassion without accountability gets you nowhere. We can make no progress if we are always just kind, just considerate, just friendly. That's nice and it's very important, but it's not enough. On the other hand, accountability without compassion gets us alienated. If we are always just focus on the results, you've got to get this done, then we become heavy-handed and we become toxic. But we can't just have one without the other. And so bringing the two together invites us to believe that it's possible to balance kindness and care with attention to results. And we can do both. And today's workplaces are demanding that. Employees around the world, millennials, people are saying, you must treat us well, and we want to work hard. We want to know that there are results and focuses, but you can do it in a kind way.
How do you bring this kindness into leaders, right? Because this is a new shift of perspective, new shift of mindset. What can they do? How can they learn this to access their heart, basically?
The first thing we have to do is understand the meaning of the word compassion. Most people think of compassion as you're kind, you're caring, your heart goes out to people, you want to help them. Maybe compassion means that I see a starving child on TV in Africa and I want to write a check and I want to give money to help people that are hurting. The word compassion, if we go to the Latin root of the word compassion, it means calm passion, which means together suffer. Compassion means to struggle with people, to suffer with people, not to suffer instead of or to feel sorry for people. The first thing is we get leaders to appreciate that we're asking you to struggle with people. And so the first thing to do is to consider what that would mean. That's where we've developed what we call the cycle of compassion, which are 3 specific skills leaders can learn to help them begin to deal with conflict together with people instead of against them.
I was watching an interview with Simon Sinek this morning, and he was talking about how the Navy SEALs, when they go through their initiation training, or they have a week of this hardcore training, he was asking the Navy SEALs, is there a general pattern in terms of which people pass the test and join the Navy SEALs? One of the guys said, absolutely. It's never the big, strong, muscular, full of tattoo men that get through. It's never the ones that played sports at college and did really well. It's always the ones that are very unassuming, they're quite scrawny, and they're always willing to, no matter how tired they are, how much energy they don't have, they always find it within them to help the man next to them. And that's what makes them, first of all, get through the week, and second of all, become a leader. So I think this idea of a leader having compassion is a fantastic one, because compassion then leads you to help your team, to lead from the top, and to show your team how to behave, I guess, and kind of trickle the message down into the business. So going back to what you said earlier about how people don't quite know how to handle conflict and they need to learn to handle it intelligently. What advice would you give to a manager who maybe avoids conflict and thinks they're just not good at it? So how could they handle it better?
Simon Sinek talks about research that is being replicated over and over and over. The real question to get to your suggestion for a manager is not to just realize what are the kinds of people that make the best leaders, but why? Why is that so effective? And what we've discovered is that the cycle of compassion requires openness, resourcefulness, and persistence. But it starts with openness. People cannot engage and give you a part of themselves until they feel safe. An unassuming leader, or a leader that listens, or a leader that shows empathy, and a leader that makes themselves vulnerable for you, is a leader you would give energy to. You can't struggle with someone until you first show that you're able to struggle, and that requires vulnerability and openness. We would think a Navy SEAL is the toughest, strongest person ever, and they are, but it's because they are first willing to be vulnerable. The advice that I would give to a leader is, it's okay that you're not comfortable doing this. It's okay that you aren't an expert, and it's absolutely critical to learn. It's possible to learn how to do this. And so leaders can practice. And one of the reasons that we wrote the book is to give leaders specific practical strategies so they can begin a step-by-step process of learning how to practice compassionate accountability.
Can you give us like a couple of examples? I know that everything is in the book and they need to buy the book, but just like a small taster, practical
absolutely.
exercises.
We've created a formula for compassionate conflict, and it means if I want to close the gap between what I see and what I want, start with open, then go to resourceful, and then go to persistent. And so open means declare your intentions and become vulnerable. Resourceful means engage problem solving. And then persistent means get clear about what are the principles at stake. Let's say that it was 20 minutes late and you had not called me yet, and I'm waiting. And so we have a gap. I want to be on the call, but you've not called. So I start typing a message. And I say, I feel anxious because I don't know what's going on. I'm vulnerable. Then I go to resourceful. What time were you expecting to call? I had down 9 p.m. and I've still not heard from you. And then I go to persistent and I declare a commitment. I promise to be on this call and I promise to stay here for the next hour. And if it doesn't work, I promise to reschedule for you. Open, resourceful, persistent. I'll give you another example, something a lot more personal. Let's say my daughter, she is 15 years old, and a boy wants to take her out on a date. I want her to be safe, but I don't know what's going to happen. I've not met this boy. Most parents would say, I've got to meet his parents, or he needs to come in and talk to us, or no, you can't go out on the date. But if I use open, resourceful, persistent, I get honest and I say to my daughter, Asha, Asha, I'm anxious because I want you to be safe and I want to feel confident that it's going to be okay when you leave the house. So I have some questions. I go to resourceful. May I talk to his parents? How long will you be gone? So then she knows I'm asking questions because I care. And then I go to persistent and I say, here are the boundaries. I want to be sure I know who his parents are. I want to be sure that his parents know he's gone. And I want to know when you'll be home. And if we can agree on that, good to go.
This vulnerability piece, I love the word, and I really believe in that in this work. But at the same time, I know how difficult it is to bring that word inside companies and in front of leaders. Have you ever experienced like a difficult situation, like with a leader, when you said, okay, you coach him, you train him, whatever, and you say, okay, look, guys, you have to be vulnerable now. Is anybody like just walk away out of your training, of your office? Do you have any stories that you can share of somebody who was just like very resistant?
Yes, and we used to use the word vulnerability at first when we talked about things. I'm a psychologist by training, and so the word vulnerability is part of my vocabulary. I didn't realize how scary that word was to the corporate world. We stopped using the word vulnerable. Now we talk about openness because openness can also include things like showing empathy or simply being honest about why you are asking a question. We can then move towards vulnerability as people become more willing, but we start with the word open. We'll often do an exercise with an organization. Let's say I'm working with a team and the supervisor is there and all of the members of the team. I ask the members of the team and the supervisor to answer the same question. I ask the supervisor, how comfortable would you be telling your team honestly how you feel about your role as a leader? And he said, no way, I wouldn't do that because that would be weak. Then I ask the team, how would you like it if your boss was honest with you about how he feels in his role? And they all said, I would love it. I would respect him more. And so we show the disconnect there between people experience vulnerability as strength and as courage, but yet they still don't want to do it.
There's something very human here. There's like bringing these people or these leaders to acknowledge their humanity inside them. I hear you well. The other narrative, which is in parallel, is all about this transformation, like about technology and tech and things like that. So from your experience, how do you see things evolving? How much do we like organization are prioritizing this human aspect of it?
Unfortunately, I think that technology continues and technical skills continue to have preference. We're still wrapped up in the knowledge economy and the information economy. And so people skills are starting to gain on it, but the research is very, very clear that the people skills must be developed, and yet we still keep avoiding it. I think the more and more we're doing international business, the more people will realize that the human connection ultimately is the only thing we have in common. And until we feel safe with each other and we can talk to each other, we can't implement the best technology. We're working right now with an IT firm in New Zealand, 7,000 miles away. We've never met these people, but on Skype, we have a trusting, safe relationship. We know these people. We've seen their faces, and we know about their lives. We know about their children. It's personal. They're doing fantastic IT programming for us, but it's personal.
I think in the corporate world and the business world, it's a lot easier to talk about the technology and the processes and the solutions and the products than it is to talk about how you feel. Even though humanity brings us together, we think it's the project we're working on, the technology we're developing, this product we're going to bring out, or the support we're giving to this company. That's the thing we think brings us together. So if we have a leader in a position where maybe they are working with a supplier remotely, or they want to have more of a connection with a supplier as opposed to an employee who maybe they don't have such a positive relationship with, how would you advise them to handle that situation? How can they bring more openness to that relationship?
Openness can involve emotions and feelings, but it doesn't have to. One of the most important things we can do when we're in a relationship with a supplier is to start it open by disclosing our motivations. How often have you ever had someone ask you for something, but they don't tell you why?
Yeah.
So you may get an email from your boss saying, will you please send me the report from the client? And I'm thinking, well, why do you want it? Or my wife calls me and says, what time are you coming home today? Why are you asking? What do you want from me? So very often in these kinds of relationships, we spend a lot of time asking each other for information, but we don't say why. And so we can transform a relationship with a provider or a supplier by simply being honest about why we're asking and why we care. Again, I was just today I was asking a translator, a Mandarin translator who lives in Australia, to do some work for us. I started the email by saying, when will you have it done? And then I thought, no, back up. I'm not being honest with her. So I said, I have a tight deadline with our Chinese producer, and I'm really eager to get them the results. When will you have it done? So now they know why I want it and why I'm asking. Now we're struggling together. So instead of them saying, well, I can't have it done by then, or why are you always asking? Now we're a team working together to meet the goal.
It's all about relationship, it's all about relationship.
All about relationship.
How can we be open, trustful? One of the most incredible things to me is still in corporate, in big businesses, we cannot say the truth. There's this climate of fear that you cannot say the truth. If you say what you really think, something bad will happen. How do we evolve from there? How do we evolve from this climate of fear to a climate of trust?
This climate of fear is only made worse by social media and what you see. People that are watching America right now, they're seeing people go on Twitter and on the news saying incredibly dangerous things, and these people are saying, hey, I'm just telling the truth. I'm just telling the truth. And it's not helpful at all. The thing that where we start with people is to remind them, if you get honest about your feelings and about what you want, it is scary. It is only scary if you place your value on how other people respond. If someone else doesn't like my idea, that hurts. If someone else discounts my feeling, that hurts. But it doesn't define me. And Brene Brown is someone that I really appreciate. She writes a lot about vulnerability, and she encourages us, my vulnerability is not about you. It's about my own worthness. And if I know that I'm okay, then I can take the risk to share with you what's on my heart. And I can't guarantee how you will respond. You may like it, you may not like it, you may think it's the dumbest thing you ever heard, and I'm still okay. We can get over that fear, because the real fear is not about the other person. The real fear is, are we okay with who we are? And once we get through that, then we're free. And it doesn't mean we're reckless. It means we are free to be who we are and struggle with other people, but they don't define us. Can I share with you a very personal story that happened yesterday?
Please.
My daughter, my same 14-year-old daughter, plays competitive volleyball, and she plays on a team that goes around in tournaments, very competitive tournaments. And her team are 14-year-old girls, and they struggle with body image and confidence and pressure, and all their parents are yelling at them. And it's terrible if you're a 14-year-old girl. And I was sitting on the sidelines as a parent watching this team just start to lose confidence, and their heads were drooping. And I thought to myself, you know what? I want to go talk to them. But then part of me said, well, what do I have to offer? I'm a stupid father. Dads don't know anything. And if I go talk to these girls, my daughter will be so embarrassed that I tried to give a motivational speech to her friends. She will think I'm so stupid. So I had all these thoughts saying, don't get vulnerable, Nate. Don't be honest. Don't go try to help. And I said, I have to. So I called all the girls together, and I put my arm around them, and my daughter was on the other side of the circle looking at me going, Dad, please don't. Please don't. and I decided to start it open. And I said, okay, girls, I'm really scared right now, and I'm very nervous because I don't want you to think I'm stupid, and I don't know how you're going to respond to what I'm going to say now. But I'm doing this because I care about you, and I love you guys, and I just want you to know how much we all care. And they just all looked at me, and I was so scared. My heart was pounding, pounding, pounding. But I went to resourceful, and I gave them some ideas, and then I went to persistent. I said, just remember, no matter whether you win or lose, you're here for each other, and your parents are going to love you no matter what. And they were so excited, and they were running around. But I was so scared, but I had to get vulnerable. I had to be honest with them before they would trust me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Once again, if you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media. Merci.